with the House of Representatives.
Well, sexual abuse in the military has affected women serving in countries including Germany, Israel, Australia and the United Kingdom. And for more on this story, let's now cross to London to speak to Joanne Mikowski from the Royal United Services Institute, who's a specialist on women serving in the military. Joanne, thanks for joining us. Does it surprise you that there's been so many reported cases of sexual assault, violence and discrimination against women right across the world?
I don't think it's surprising as such. Unfortunately, it's a reflection of society, and we do hear stories like this occurring outside of the military domain. I think it's more reflective of the fact that women are finding that they have a voice and a channel by which they can actually make these issues known and stand up and say that actually this is not an okay aspect of the job which we're participating in, and that they're able to give voice in greater numbers to these issues.
So what would you say to people who argue it's a male world and that's how it should remain?
I'd actually say that's a pretty entrenched view of something that's no longer reality. Defence and the military is changing in terms of what we use the military for, the kind of operations. We've seen that in Afghanistan, it has been much a combat operation as it has been working with the local population. The Hearts and Minds campaign is something that's talked about so much that's required different skills, but we're still using the military instrument in order to achieve these ends. So it's traditionally masculine, but it's something that's actually rapidly changing because it is now about what we want to achieve with the military and getting the best people into the job in order to be able to achieve that.
So what does the military leadership need to do in order to make it a fairer and more equitable workplace, especially, as you just say, given its traditional male culture?
I think there's a recognition that as we go forward, the more people we're recruiting in, the younger generation are actually bringing a change of perspective in with them. And so it's not something that needs to start now moving forward. There is a change just in terms of the number of people who are coming in that are bringing they're bringing 21st century attitudes for a start. But what we really need to see to make sure this is entrenched throughout the entire military structure of whichever country this is occurring in is that it's got to be leadership for the top, and it's got to be leadership that stands up, puts it out there and then says, I will not stand for deviation from this.
Now, Joanne, last year the United States dropped the ban on women serving in combat roles, and they're not alone. Increasingly, women soldiers are finding themselves on the front line in any case, especially as the nature of war changes. But when women are indeed in combat roles, what impact does it have on their units? It
depends. There's obviously a lot of surveys done about the physical aspects and the physical implications, but what we hear time and time again is stories of people going out and then going, they did their job, they met the required standards in order to be posted to that frontline position, and that when they were called upon to do their job, they did it, and gender was never a factor there.
So it didn't have an impact on the effectiveness of that military unit, that's what you're saying?
As far as I can tell, there's obviously not a lot of information that's publicly available. So what you do hear are the success stories. You do hear where there are concerns. The heavy detail, the heavy research that is being kept classified, if you like, for the moment, whilst militaries do reflect and try to work on how they're improving their policies.
I'm afraid, Joanne, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. Now, in other news, a doctor will stand trial for the first time in Egypt on charges of female genital mutilation, or FGM as it's referred to. This after a 13-year-old girl died following an alleged operation in his clinic last year. In the landmark case, Dr Razan Fadil is the first doctor to be prosecuted for FGM in the country, where the practice was banned in 2008. However, it's still widely accepted and carried out by many doctors in private. And finally, ever fancy